All right, so here's the question. Is QuickBooks Online the best software to use for your wineries? And the answer is yes. If we're talking about QuickBooks Online versus QuickBooks Desktop, I would say in almost all situations, QuickBooks Online is going to be the best choice for you. There's some cases where maybe it's not, but in general, I think it is. Getting your accounting into a cloud-based system is just the way of the future. Even Intuit, the owner of QuickBooks, knows this. They are rolling back their support, or I think they're not even issuing new subscriptions to QuickBooks Pro and Premier at this point, and the support is eventually going to disappear for those programs. They are still selling new copies of their QuickBooks Enterprise, but that program is expensive and it is probably too much for most small wineries to handle. I mean, we're talking anyone really under 10,000 cases, maybe even bigger. Maybe if you're super complicated, maybe there's a reason to go to a different mid-tier system sooner, but really QuickBooks Online, it's the way to go. The number one reason is access. Everybody has access. Your team has access. Your team is used to not working all in the same place. They don't all want to come into the office. Your accountant doesn't want to come into your office. So just having access to a cloud-based system is, I think, the number one reason to share. Sure, you can put QuickBooks Desktop on a shared server. You can log in remotely. It's super clunky. It's not fun. You're still going to have potential problems with version control. Who's got what file? Are you using the QuickBooks accountant's copy? It's not easy. It's not clean. Just go with the cloud-based solution. There are some other small business cloud-based accounting platforms. Xero is one of them. Wave is one of them, especially Xero, worth looking into. There's no reason I would not recommend that. It's just not the platform that we use because it's just not as well known in the States. We do have some wineries that have used Wave, and we haven't really gotten into that either, but it's just QuickBooks Online is just the most common platform. It's kind of just nice to be where everybody else is sometimes. So the other awesome things about QuickBooks Online when you're converting, the bank feeds rock. It just makes the bookkeeping so much easier. There are some nuances that you got to understand with the way that QuickBooks Online uses the bank feeds. It uses some algorithms to suggest vendors and categorizations that may not be correct. And so you got to be careful around that. But the other thing about QuickBooks is it's always rolling out new things. Even I use it every single day for hours a day. And I get in there and I'm like, what is QuickBooks doing? Then most of the things they roll out are great and interesting. A lot of them I just ignore because I'm like, I don't have time, but you just got to be careful and just, take it slow with the new features that you adopt. It's just some interesting things happen sometimes when you get inside there, but it's a lot of the things that they're rolling out are great and super helpful. And it's worth it to, subscribe to some newsletters or kind of stay on top of the news coming out of Intuit. It's rolling out a lot of new features and we don't recommend using every feature inside of QuickBooks Online. We like that it's a cloud general ledger. We don't use, for instance, the inventory module. We don't recommend using that. It can just tie you in knots. It's not a super robust inventory module. And so it can just make things way more complicated than they need to be. We do our costing outside of QuickBooks. We use work papers and we encourage our wineries to use a point of sale system like OrderPort to be their inventory source of truth for their case goods. Ideally, they're going to be running all of their sales through as few of channels as possible. If you can get everything going out through OrderPort, it's just so much easier if you're not using multiple sales channels or sales systems. I mean, you can still be selling wholesale or direct to retail and DTC and wine club and in your tasting room, but just use one point of sale if possible for all of those so that all your case depletions are in one spot so that when you're doing your costing or your accountant is doing your costing, they're not trying to track down sales from 3 different point of sale systems plus directly out of QuickBooks Online. So that's one recommendation we have. Just try to avoid turning on the inventory module. We also don't use the sales tax module. In Washington, sales tax is pretty complicated. In other states, it may not be a big deal, but we just kind of stay away from the sales tax situation in QuickBooks, and we take care of that all outside of QuickBooks. We also don't use the payroll inside of QuickBooks. This works for some people. It is not my favorite. We recommend using Gusto, or can also recommend Cirrus Payroll if you want a full outsource solution with great customer support. Tyler Wynn is doing an awesome job over there. Gusto, OnPay, there's other cloud-based systems. QuickBooks Online works. It's just not my favorite. Budgeting, you get budgeting in QuickBooks. We don't honestly really use that either. We use add-on programs for forecasting and budgeting for our clients. We use Fathom to do that. There's a lot of very good programs that sit on top of QuickBooks Online that can get you much better reporting than you can get out of QuickBooks. The QuickBooks reporting is really good, and there's no reason you need to have a separate system. But if you do want something fancier, there's a million good programs out there. Fathom is what we use, but there are a lot of others as well. One of the other features that QuickBooks has rolled out is the ability to send your receipts directly into QuickBooks, and then it has some OCR or information extraction where it can pull the information off those invoices and receipts and put it in directly into QuickBooks Online. That's actually a feature I wasn't completely aware of, and a client introduced me to it. And I was like, interesting. It's, there's a little bit of switching costs when you're changing tech. We use Dext to do that same function. Bill.com also has some of that same functionality. So that's a feature that I would watch in QuickBooks. It's a great part of your pre-accounting tech stack. And I think if you weren't working with an accountant who was already using Dext or another solution, then that would definitely be worth looking into. It's just nice to have those PDFs attached to your transactions, and it's great if QuickBooks or whatever tech you're using can take the information off of those PDFs and get it into your system for you. QuickBooks Online has several different plans. We generally find that our clients want to be on the Plus plan. There is a Simple Start, which is really too simple to do anything, and there's QuickBooks Essentials, which works great for wineries if you're not using the budgeting and if you're not using classes. So if neither of those are features that you need, then you can get away with the Essentials. They also have QuickBooks Online Advanced. It's quite a bit more expensive. It has a lot of fancy stuff in it. We're starting to use that with some of our clients. One of the things that really triggers us moving to that is when they have a big enough team that they have people that they want to be in the books doing different functions but not see everything. So you have granular ability to restrict permissions for different team members in there, which is one of the great features there. If you pay for your QuickBooks Online subscription yourself, they'll give you a little discount to start out with, but if you end up getting it through Pro Advisor, you can get a subscription discount for the life of the subscription. So if you're not already in it, talk to your accountant before you convert, and maybe they can get you a little deal on it. It's totally worth paying for to have, but I'd say the cost of QuickBooks completely and totally worth it. It's just one of the costs of doing business. Costs on QuickBooks Desktop, they're doing that on a subscription model now, and now that you can only get the enterprise, the costs are going to be probably comparable or less to being QuickBooks Online at this point. If the cost is a factor, you might want to look at Xero and see if you can find an accountant who works in Xero with you. But those are my recommendations. I really believe that QuickBooks Online is an absolutely fine system for wineries and probably the best that there is out there. And this should probably go earlier in the video. But one other thing you'll see is that in QuickBooks Desktop, there's the ability to bills of material and do units of measure tracking and a lot of other really fancy things. And honestly, for small wineries, all these things I just don't find are necessary. And that if you're getting into that level of detail, it's just, you're a little bit overkill. The cost benefit analysis for what you're putting into your bookkeeping just may not be working out in your favor. A lot of that stuff can really be taken care of in Excel much more efficiently for small wineries, and then the journal entries posted into QuickBooks Online. So that's my take on it. Let me know if you have any comments. Happy to always hear opinions. Don't want to start a big fight, but it's always good to hear your opinion on this.